I'm Nick, and welcome to my shop. Today I have a lot of plywood. This is plywood cutoffs from, I don't know what process or what they were making, but it's nice plywood, and I got it for free. Plywood is tricky to work with in the lathe. It is hard, it is dense, it just tears up the tools, but I've done stuff like this before. This is a platter that I made, I think back in 2021, so that'd be, what, 2 years ago now? And I took Baltic birch plywood and I cut it up and then laminated it together into this design. And it's an absolute gorgeous platter. I actually made a bigger one that got sold that was gorgeous. This is the first one, so off center, bunch of mistakes, but I've learned a lot. And today I'm gonna make another big platter with all of this stuff. So here's the first platter I turned. I did a herringbone pattern in the middle, these horizontal lines on the sides, and then these vertical lines here to just separate the different design elements in the platter. And the thing I learned is keeping it simple and also try not to put something in the middle, because if you look this side here, there's less than over here, so centering stuff is really difficult. So with that in mind, I want to make a platter. I'm going to shoot for, I think, 16 inches in diameter. And I was thinking, do horizontal lines like this, and have a vertical piece just to separate the two elements. And then do 45s up like that. Now, rule of thirds is something to talk about in like art a lot, where if you have like a vase or something, you want this bottom half to be 2/3, the top half to be 1/3. And that's just like super eye-pleasing. So what I'm going to do here is this is going to be 1/3, and this will be 2/3. And that's basically the layout I'm going to shoot for. So yeah, let's start sorting some wood and seeing what I have. So I have a bunch of 1 inch, have like 1.25 inches, like this stuff here. This is the 1.5 inches that I really am targeting. And then I got these bigger pieces, like this is, like 2.5 inches. And then a whole bunch of like 1/2 inch stuff here. So hopefully I have enough in this pile and in this pile to make a platter. Let's lay it out and see what I have. So just roughly looking at it, I have enough for this part. This diagonal is what I'm missing, which that should, I guess, work. Because I'll have to rip this down to the right size. What I'm going to do is just cut it all up and start assembling, and then if I end up having to make a smaller platter, so be it. I don't have a table saw in this small shop, but I do have a bandsaw, so I'll use that to cut the pieces. I'm going to set my fence to 10. Which is the length I want for that glue up. Then I'll set my guard down to about like 1/4 inch above the piece of wood. And to make sure that's a nice 90-degree parallel cut, I have a jig for that. My little miter gauge, which is impossible to use one-handed apparently. So that's a stop. It should be good to make 10-inch pieces of plywood. Okay, we're back at the table here. Just cut this stuff up. Now it's just a simple layout. Need pieces for these sides. Need one more piece cut, which still have these long ones, so I will cut myself a piece that is 7 inches or so. 7 inches. Let's go do that. Okay. Now what's left is this little sliver down here. I want to overhang it a little bit because that'll give me leeway on the lathe to center everything. And this piece is 5 inches. Okay, got the 5-inch block right there. So that is half laid out. It's not going to sit flat because it covers more of it. So now I've got to do the 45 going that way. Which is kind of like that. Use my square here to double check. So that's at 45. I'm going to lose that end here. So it's going to cut straight. And that's only about like an inch. So I need something that is, I'm going to lose an inch, so 8 inches this way, I think. Because if I lose that inch, then it's going to be there and I'll be overhanging. Let's see, worst case, that's going to be close. So let's go like 9 inches to be sure. Let's get a few pieces cut. I just need a little chunk for up here. And like 1 piece short. So yeah, that's how I lay out a platter. It's not very scientific. I did all the math before on a piece of paper trying to figure out exactly like all the cuts to make. But I find this method works really well because it's just fast. And that's mainly what I look for in the shop. Now the fun part is gluing this all up. So I use wax paper to protect my clamps. Found that butcher paper works really well. It's more or less like a plastic backed wax paper. But there's no way about it. No matter what you do, you're just still going to make a huge, huge mess. There's probably a better way to do this where you don't make a huge mess. But I haven't found it yet. What I'm using here is Tide Bond 3. I generally will grab Tide Bond 2 or Tide Bond 3. I have this on hand because I was doing a platter already. And Type on 3 is a little more water resistant, so the platter does get used and washed. The glue just seems to, or should hold up better because it does have that like greater water resistance. Okay. Now the trick is to glue this all together and not have a complete disaster. Let me rephrase that. The trick is to glue this all together in one big disaster and then tell no one that it was a disaster. This first part is glued up. And if you look, it is pretty straight here on the edge. It will get cleaned up using a sander, but I'm happy with that. So I'll let this sit overnight. Tomorrow we're going to come back and glue up the next part. For the next part, the 45s, a friend recommended to me to cut a 45-degree angle on the pieces to begin with, and that should help with the clamping of the glue up. So at the local makerspace here, I use the table saw to make those cuts. This is the jig that I made. I'm gonna try to like clamp it all in there. I have tried other things before using like dogs in the bench and the tail vise to kind of like apply pressure, and then using kind of like clamps. I got these to help out with that, and they just like pop in the bench, and use like a little wrench to like tighten it in. And I haven't used these yet, but between all of this I should get something to work. These things should help. I'm kind of like figuring this out, honestly, but yeah, I also cut these at 45 to fit in here. So let's try to glue this thing up. So now my jig is splitting here. Now I'm getting some glue out, or glue squeeze out here. I think I just need to leave it. Well, I got this thing glued up. It was just a calamity in the process. So this is just supposed to be 45, but it's not. This is kind of holding it in. The hold fast is holding this all down to not move, but it did. That should be a straight angle, but it's not. But it's fine, no one will notice. Then my jig split. I tried to use my new fancy hold fast clamps, but well, it fits in that hole. It didn't fit in the hole over there. So that's kind of a bummer. Yeah, just one big calamity, but it's glued together, and I think that's all that matters. It'll work. Since I have access to the table saw, I decided to use it to clean up the edges. So, got these two pieces cut up and glued up and everything. I used the table saw to get these faces straight. This is what I'm going to glue. I don't know if you noticed in the video, but the miter gauge would move slightly. There was some play in it that, because I cut this one first, I figured it out and was able to fix it for this one, but this edge here is not perfectly straight. So if I get the wood, you'll see like right here there's a gap, and I need to sand that out. To sand it out, you just need some sandpaper and a flat surface and run it back and forth. The lathe bedways are perfect for this. This whole process took me about 5 minutes. And just like that, the blank is glued up and drying. Let's knock these corners off on the bandsaw and get it onto the lathe. The best way to turn this blank is with sharp tools and a montage. So let's get at it. So this was the cutter that I was using there, and you can see that it is now bent at a nice angle. That shouldn't happen. Yeah, so plywood is, like I said, super tough on the tools, and this tool did not survive, but no worries. This will get reground into something new, and it'll still be useful. This platter is ready to be sanded. Got it nice and flat. There's some tool marks, but that'll just stand out. There's a little bit of tear out, but again, that's what sandpaper's for. Got a nice profile on the edge, so when it's sitting flat, you can get your finger underneath it to pick it up. This dips in. This is the foot that it's going to be sitting on, so it should sit nice and flat. I'm pretty pleased with this. I think that's going to look really good. Today I'm using the polyurethane spray finish. Wanted something that had a deeper tone than just the oil, so trying this out. Turned out. This piece is super cool, it's super different, and the laminations give you so many like possibilities beyond this. So going forward, I'm definitely going to do more of this. This plywood is a little bit easier to turn than Baltic birch, so I'm super happy about that. So as always, thanks for watching and have fun.